Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today we're talking about Mahler. Now, when you talk about Mahler and the greatest recordings ever, usually you're going to be mentioning something by Leonard Bernstein. And, yes, you are. And it really doesn't matter whether you like Bernstein or you don't like Bernstein, because it's an indication of just how referencey his recordings are generally, that most performances post-Bernstein and even pre-Bernstein are triangulated around his. You would say, oh, so-and-so doesn't, drip all over the music like Bernstein does, or so-and-so is cold and uninteresting and undemonstrative and nowhere near as emotionally engaged as like Bernstein is. You can do it either way because he is the center and focus of our discussion of Mahler interpretations. And actually, that's kind of what reference recordings are. We're not talking about reference recordings. We're talking about the greatest recordings, actually. So because, like I said, a not very great performance can be a reference, all things considered. But great recordings, well, they have to have unalloyed, objective, absolutely indisputable, great fabulousness in all of their parameters, right? And so when we talk about Bernstein's Mahler in the great category, there are a few symphonies which he really can be said to have discovered. And I'm going to talk about one of them right now, and that one is the seventh. Here it is. Mahler Symphony Number 7. This is actually the Carnegie Hall Presents New York Philharmonic, sort of, except it's not all the New York Philharmonic, Mahler reissue series that actually includes Das Lied von der Erde. It's one of the few Bernstein Mahler cycles on Sony that actually includes Das Lied von der Erde, which is great. Anyway, here's the bottom line. Mahler's Seventh didn't exist till Bernstein discovered it. It's that simple. In the late 1960s. Now, yes, there were earlier recordings of the Seventh, including Hans Rosbaud, for example, and some other interesting people. Scherchen did it, and strange and unusual conductors. Maurice Abravanel did a very creditable job with it, but Bernstein placed it in the canon of great Mahler symphonies. I think the Seventh is a very great Mahler symphony. One of the things that makes it so great is the thing that makes it different from all the other Mahler symphonies, which is that it's not a gut-wrenching expressionist nightmare. It's a very stylized, sort of evocative, intellectual. It's all the things that we often don't think that Mahler is supposed to be, but done in his own language. And the most marvelous way, I think, to really encounter the Seventh is directly after the Sixth. Because once you know the Sixth, you see that the Seventh uses many of the same elements, only in a different way. They have a different meaning. And that's what's one of the great things about music and our musical tradition. That's the kind of thing that Haydn was able to do so well, that a great symphonist does. You take an idea, you take a motive, and you use it, and it may seem like it's so different from one piece to the next that you don't even recognize it. For example, the opening movement of the Sixth begins with the following tune. Da-dum, ba-ba-da-dum, right? Well, the opening theme of the Seventh Symphony's first movement, once the allegro gets going, is dum-bum, bum-ba-da-dum-bum, which is more or less exactly the same thing, for example. Or there's that motive in the Sixth Symphony of the major chord turning to a minor chord under the fate rhythm in the Sixth, as it is. It's A major going to A minor. And it's really a wonderfully pregnant motive idea. Well, Mahler uses it several times in the first Nachtmusik of the Seventh Symphony. As everything slithers down to the bottom. It's just marvelous, and it's exactly the same thing that we hear in the Sixth. And what's even better is that he mocks it. He makes fun of it in the finale of the Seventh. At the end of the first subject, when it's going, and all of a sudden it's a separate key, totally separate chord of the woodwinds. If you're listening carefully, you'll realize that is the the Fate motive from the Sixth Symphony, or one of the Fate motives, turned to very, very different comical effect. And that's something that a genius composer can do. I think one of the reasons that the Seventh often, gets short shrift is because, first of all, it doesn't have that gut-wrenching emotional quality that a lot of people are looking for in Mahler. It has strange feelings. It's actually an advance in what music can do, because much of it is ironic, humorous, but also warm and witty, and it's all of these things that Mahler isn't supposed to be, but of course he is. He's all of those things. But I also think, as I was saying, that one of the reasons, before I got sidetracked there with another, one of the reasons that the Seventh Symphony isn't quite understood is because it isn't heard in context. If you know your Sixth, and then you listen to the Seventh, for example, then all of a sudden, wonderful things start to happen. And also, if you know the Third and you know the Seventh, as Mahler himself, pointed out the relationship between those two works as well, especially in the use of march music, march themes. So yeah, it's a fabulous work. And it was Bernstein's recording of it that really taught us that made it sound other than just a strange aberration of Mahler's genius, or one of his weaker things, or he was written out, or we heard all of this stuff, and some people really still don't get it, particularly the finale, which is basically a celebration of the quotidienne in music, musical commonplace elements, but exaggerated to the point of grotesqueness. It's a wonderful example in music of the comic grotesque. And most people have no sense of humor anyway when it comes to classical music, so they certainly aren't going to get the comic grotesque. Bernstein gets it. He gets it and puts together a last movement which is as cogent and effortless in its pacing as anything you'll ever hear from anyone. It's absolutely wonderful. The New York Philharmonic plays beautifully. Because this was later in Bernstein's Mahler cycle for Sony, the sound is quite good. The sonics are excellent. And it's really just an astonishing performance, a great, great performance that doesn't just reveal Bernstein's personal identification with Mahler, but no, it reveals Mahler, the symphony as a great work of Mahler. And that's why it is one of the greatest recordings ever. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.